This is my last functioning Osmo 3 gimbal, and it was not locking and loading. It was just kind of flapping in the wind, but it seems to be working. And it is Sunday morning, and I came down. Look at this. I came down to buy bread at the Wildflower Bakery. And if I don't buy that bread by usually about 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning, there might not be any left. So that's why I came down here. But I'm down by the river. I actually did ride my bike down, but I just wanted to go for a walk along the river because it's just gorgeous. Good morning. So there is the Nancy Paw Bridge. That's where I was swimming yesterday morning. I had a good day of exercise yesterday, I must admit. Hey, good morning. And I was actually sore through the night. I was thinking of going for a swim this morning, but I wanted good morning, but I wanted to get a baguette, get some bread. So I thought I'd bring everybody down here. And we are so bonjour, buenos dias, bonjour, bon matin. Look at Mount Norquay out there. You can see the ski runs. It is actually warm for us. So much so I wish I were in shorts. I'm in long outdoor trousers at the moment, and I have my fleece on. It is beautiful, isn't it? So Mount Norquay, of course, named for the first. Good morning, the first premier of Manitoba up there, and way in the distance, Mount Brewster. That was the first family. You still see Brewster buses around, but that's just a co-opted name by a corporation now. But Mount Brewster up there, that was the first family that did group tours up at the old Banff Springs Hotel. So, oh, happy Sunday. Nice to see, isn't it just gorgeous? This is why I wanted to share it. This time of year, the river is just so beautiful. Like I say, yesterday morning, I was in the water. There is Sulphur Mountain. Hi, everyone. I was in the river yesterday for about 8 minutes, and it was just lovely. Ran into a couple of friends who had just come out of the river. So we all stood and chatted for a while. I got home and shivered then in a good way. And then I was able to go for a bike ride. And it was just a yesterday on a slightly heavier note. I was meant to be doing a tour starting at 7 o'clock in the morning, and the family that had booked me had a death in their family and had to go home. So it was I was very sad for them. I'd only talked to them on the phone, so it's not that I knew them, but I ended up with a much freer day than I expected. There is a magpie zipping along. I don't know if you saw it, uh, but I am out here. Hi there. So yeah, starting tomorrow, so let's take a little wander up and we'll do some of the art in nature. But tomorrow, I've got a tour starting at 7 a.m. going down into Yoho. I'll finish that one too. And at 2:15, I'll meet a tour bus and I'll go all the way into Calgary, come home. And then Tuesday, I will be giving talks online for University of Michigan all day long. Now we're meant to get hot today. Oh, here's some sort of a bike tour. That's these bike tours are showing up in town. And not hey, here's a good friend of mine. Look behind me here. So if you don't get out at this time in the morning, you won't get out in Banff these days because it is just so busy. Now I can do anything on my bike, of course, but I mean, you watch people come in on these weekends sometime after 10:30 and they just can't get parked. Oh, the light has just shifted. Just to share this with everyone. So, Uh, the light is just moving around, so it is just just to see. And of course, you have locals out doing their morning runs, and you have all the tourists and everything. It was interesting. I was biking down this morning. There were three motorcycles, and they weren't those big, awful Harley things. They'd just be illegal because they terrify animals. But they were still. As soon as they turned them on, I started coughing. You know, we're just so used to clean air here. This, by the way, I just want to show you. This is a silver birch tree, and we don't really have them here. We have the aspen trees, but the silver birch has a peeling bark. That's how you know. And that's, of course, when you would have made historically a beach bark canoe. So First Nations people traveled across this continent, Turtle Island, for literally thousands of years in those canoes made of that birch bark. And what a brilliant material, because at the end of the day, you're able to just cut open the tree a little bit, get some sap, pull some bark off, and fix up your um your canoe any way you need to without doing any real damage to the tree. A little bit like maple syrup. I think it's a very ethical thing to be a maple syrup farmer. Oh, there is a dodgy character. Look at that, following me along. Nice to see. That's that shadowy creature. So, talking about the First Nations as we come up to the bridge here on the other side. is the Luxton Museum. That's run by the First Nations, and it's built in the form of an old fur trade fort, very typical of the old forts. Lots of flowers still out. The wild roses are effectively gone now. So wild rose season has come and gone. We're actually at the tail end. So the berry season is still with us for probably 10 days now. When they do have these fenced off areas, um, it is to keep people out, but it's also to stop the beavers coming out and chewing down these trees. That's why you have mesh around. There's an aspen tree. See how the bark is not peeling on it? And so they've got a mesh down there. Now this is our big park, and there's your first peak of wonderful Cascade Mountain out in the distance there. There was a wedding here yesterday afternoon, um, and it was a very busy, busy, busy time to be doing wedding photos there, but good on them. I thought that was lovely for their sake. And we'll go on the bridge, then we'll come back and we'll just do a little loop of the art in nature. It is gorgeous. And I know many of you who've been following my virtual tours for a long time, I know you've seen this, but even living here, it's these sort of mornings. In fact, I'm almost regretting I didn't come swimming this morning. So I just parked my bike right across there. Now there's Sulphur Mountain. And of course, Sulphur Mountain is lower, and you know that because the trees go to the very top of it. So that's up about 2,300 meters, about 8,000 feet. And there are natural hot pools on there. So, of course, one of the amazing things about the Canadian Rockies is we have natural hot springs, but we don't have anything else that would elicit that. Um, I'm exactly right. I never get tired. And look at this for a reflection out there. Now, if we stood here long enough, we will see fish rising as well. And so there's four larger fish that are in here. You're looking east, by the way. So this river is starting way up behind me. Actually, I have to go over the other bridge to see it, but it's about 52 kilometers out that way. And you get out to Lake Louise. In fact, why don't we go this way instead? And we'll loop back. So here's some of our co-op housing. Now we've got a big we collectively, people who actually live in Banff, as of course we are a community as well as a resort town and a national park. But we've got a whole plan. The clouds are wonderful, aren't they? We've got a whole plan to develop better housing opportunities, but of course, town cannot grow. It's funny, I explain this so often on all these private tours. I just want to get back to these reflections a little bit. I'll rundle out there in the distance. Look at that. And then from here, you can kind of see the sacred buffalo guardian. But but unlike so we don't have Airbnb or anything like that, which is great news. But we are receiving millions of visitors every year. But it's not like we can build a new parking area outside of town, right? That's what's so significant is it can't expand. The park has to come first, and I agree with that. Here's our art in nature trail. So because of that, we have different kind of challenges. So they have allowed for some higher density housing. In fact, the bottom end of my street is a little old 1920s house for sale for $1.8 million, but the lot is big enough to probably build 6 units. So if everyone wants to invest, we could do that. Well, finally, there's a friend from Ireland here. Look at this. So this is Jason Carter. That's the Bear Taj. So that's the single Bear Taj. He's an Indigenous artist. Has a gallery here in Banff and a gallery in Canmore. So nice to see so many friends here. You see, people have an appetite for a Sunday morning walk. So why not? And this is that picture I put up. So I don't know how well you can do screenshots. I understand a whole group of my friends are all off to Ireland in under a week, including my friend Sayuri, who is, of course, a brilliant guide in Bahia in Brazil. By the way, mark on your calendars, ladies and gentlemen, next year in November. So not this November, next 2026, there will be a trip to Brazil on To Me Travel. So the actual great question, the Bamfite population. So a couple of answers to it. Basically, the goal is to keep the town under 9,000 permanent inhabitants. As far as I know, or the last that you read online, about 8,400 people qualify for the need to reside. So, like me, you would have the right to buy a house, whether you could afford one. You know, I mean, I can barely afford mine, but that's just the nature of it. So there's about that. And then at any given time, like say the Alaska flag, right? The plaque for this one is gone. I don't know where it's gone. But you've got at any given time about 3,000 workers from elsewhere, other parts of Canada. Of course, our largest non-Canadian group tend to be Australians, New Zealanders. These little posts here are for the plows in the winter. Um, UK, of course, Ireland, France, Chile, lots of Chileans, Mexicans. But the white flag up there is the Treaty 7 flag of the Treaty 7 First Nation, or all of First Nations, I should say. And in fact, if the door were open, there would be the land acknowledgement over there. So here's the complimentary shuttle up to the Banff Gondola because all that parking is full as well. I think overall, they're doing an excellent job of managing as best they can. Here we go. Return of the bison. Now, this matters. 2017 bison were reintroduced into the park. They have survived. And that again is Jason Carter. And last year, 14 baby bison were born in Banff. They're over in an area called the Ghost. And the Ghost, by the way, goes way back to a Stony Nakota legend of a brave who at night was trying to cross the river and was pulled into the river, and his ghost still rides after the herds of bison. So there's some interesting stories that way. Of course, there's interesting stories. They're all quite meaningful. These trees, do you see this one that's tipping down on the edge and turning up at the top? So its roots are obviously firm enough in there that it's hanging on. There's a few trees that I watched for years now. This one's still got quite a bit more time, although we haven't had huge snowpack. If we have, and let's cross our fingers and our legs and everything, and hope for a huge snowpack this winter. Partly because I want to ski some powder again, but also when that comes down in spring, you see the trees that are banged up against the bridge over here. So there they go. And when they really pack up in there, then they need to go down. Parks goes down and chainsaws them up, lets them float away. That's just part of the erosion. And of course, many of you have joined me in the winter when I walked right across here. When I've done the private virtual tours for, for some of those websites, often retirement homes, that sort of thing, it's great fun. I'll, in the winter, start my tour standing out in the river. People ask me if I'm safe, and I say, no, of course I'm safe. Up top, there is the park administration building and the Cascade of Times Gardens. Now, right now, there's always something, if you get into the nature of the environment, there's always something. So the dragonflies and the damselflies are in their sort of mating period at the moment. And of course, they're absolutely harmless, but big bugs, they're gorgeous to watch. So they're everywhere around the kind of denser forested areas. So that's a neat thing to see. I hope you did watch my video the other day from Glacier House there in on the top of Rogers Pass, because that is just such great hiking. I drove back nearly from Vancouver in one day, which is a long, long, long drive. And so I stopped for a 2-hour hike. It's exactly what I needed. Oh, here comes a train. Healing by Abstract Nature. Dana Roman. That's lovely. Oh yeah, it is just, it's so, I love that history up there. It's just kind of a hard place to get to. You need to be driving east to really get in well. And so I always stop for kind of a half hour. And I thought this time, I don't know, I've had my headphones in, but whether you can hear the train coming through. But this is where the current actually begins, and it speeds up. So people who are in canoes down at the canoe club are told they can't come down this way. Because if you're not an experienced canoeist and you start to get caught into this current, well, next thing you know is the Bow Falls. Bow Falls, of course, were made famous in 1953 when Marilyn Monroe came here and filmed River of No Return. Now, when in the tunnels, do you all play the same tunnel tradition? You open the windows in your car and go, Echo! Hi, Echo! So sending hugs all around. There we are on the other side now, and you'll see, you might catch a Canadian flag there. That's the Legion. Is there much current? Yes. So yes, there is. It just, what happens, and I think it's a really good question, because if you don't come from an area with as intense winter as we do, it's hard to imagine. But the river volume changes almost daily. So I think there was a little rain up in the mountains. This is a buffalo berry bush. The berries are gone here. Yep. So the berry season is coming to an end. It's only about 6 weeks. So really, like yesterday, it got quite warm, and we haven't been that warm. We've had a cooler summer, which has been wonderful because the rest of the country's on fire. Now here's some of these are the buffalo berries. These are what the bears eat this time of year. We can eat them, but it's quite bitter taste. So the current just really comes up and down. Usually, high water is um, in around mid-June, and that's all according to what's melting at that time, right? So if the snow hasn't really melted and then suddenly we get hot and it comes down vigorously, then the river can come up to quite a current. I've already passed the time really, but just the other side of this bridge, which I'm going to walk over, I'll go swimming in there in later June when I can get into the current, but I don't go too far. See, there's another one of these trees I just want to talk about. Yeah, this one is just on its edge now, and it really has drowned out. Like it doesn't look like it's really living anymore. So one of these, maybe not this year, maybe next year, it'll then be pulled down into the water, and away it goes. Now up top there is the YWCA, and that was our original hospital way back when. You can still hear that train out there. What a view now, straight across. And the mountain just up on the ridge there, that is Stony Lookout Mountain. That is actually, I think, the best easy hike around Banff because people just don't know. You need a car. I guess there's a bus. No, there's a shuttle. You go up to the Norquay parking lot, and it's only about a 4.5 kilometer loop. But when you're standing at the top of the mountain, you feel like you can reach out and touch the other big mountain, which is pretty fantastic. And you can see Banff in the distance. So you get that really high perspective without a whole lot of work. So that's a neat thing to see. All right. So we're back along to our art walk here. Good morning, everyone. It's so nice to see people when I'm in the landscape, which I think really is better. So this is Jennifer d'Entremont. I witness many things is what this little piece is called. And there's our map of the town. But yes, when I'm in the landscape mode here, people's comments just come up as one line and then they disappear. Some people here have seen that before. So I do miss some of your questions in your chat, but I can always run back down and see what it says. This guy. So let's go on over this bridge. We'll see a bit more of the current. And then it is Sunday. So uh, yeah, I'm going to have a bit of a computer day, although I really feel like better be a long bike ride today as well. So I hope you're all being healthy and happy. I managed to get some frozen but wild blueberries yesterday. So that's going to be my breakfast, which is really nice. And then just trying to be as healthy as possible before I have tours every single day. Yeah, landscape is way better. Absolutely. I totally agree. Um, oh, thank you. Oh, thank you there very much, Ms. Goss. I appreciate that. I do want to go over this bridge, but I just want to come and show you a few more pieces of art down here. If I carried on along here, I would actually come to the Bull Falls. So there's that Michael Corner, Gordon Wesley, who I believe, yeah. Oh, yeah. All three of these artists come from Cheyenne Bearspaw. They all come from the Stoney Nakoda First Nation, which again are the people who actually lived here and were rounded up and booted off their land and put on a preserved land. So I do give long talks about that, and we should. There's the Bertage, which is quite simple, but it is popular. So portage is carrying your canoe over rapids, right? So again, I could go down here for another hour, but I always find this one fun and creative. So this is Worlds Within by Dan Hudson. Look at that. It was a photograph the other day of from one of these fabulous ça fait plaisir, from one of these fabulous telescopes, and it was talking about there was a new galaxy that's obviously hundreds of millions of light years away, but it looked like a belt buckle. It was literally called the belt buckle or something. Um, but it's nice when things bring a smile. There's also a new a new planet found only about 4.5 um, whatever light years away, which is quite close to us. be kind of the size of Jupiter. So I always have that stuff on my news feed come up. Now look at this other tree, really on its very last days. It's going down there, um, and it measures. So this, for example, I would never be able to walk right across this in the winter, but the water's so low that on this side and the other side, I can walk out at least 3 or 4 meters, 10, 12 feet compared to now. Like the difference between spring and fall. Have a look sometime at images of the Tanana River. Tanana is in Alaska. It's the largest glacial fed river in the world. And its difference between spring and fall is just incredible. That one gives birth, well, one of its tributaries, I guess the other way around, is the Chena River. And the Chena is where Fairbanks, Alaska is. So there we go. Here we are on the Banff Bridge. This is the older pedestrian bridge. I love the way it frames Cascade Mountain. And that leads to Muskrat Street. So it is kind of made for art. And then just over here, we got a great view now of Sleeping Buffalo Mountain. I just want to see what. Uh, oh, stay strong, everybody. Hi there. Oh, hey. Well, it's big hugs to all of you. Yes, so it's amazing how on these days people have specific experiences that are drawn back. And I tell you, the mountains do make you feel better. I guess unless you dislike mountains. I have to admit to being guilty of something that locals can be guilty of, and that's I'm already ready to see some snow again, even though we've had a very cool summer. Here to the earlier question, you see how shallow it is already becoming there. So that's the water level falling. Now this week, the next few days, we're meant to get up into the high 20s, which for us is really hot. So that's like the low 80s Fahrenheit. And by Thursday, it's going to be cool again with some rain. So nature is medicine. So right down there is the start of the Bow Falls. They go on for about 3/4 of a kilometer. They drop about 14 and a half, 15 meters, so 45 feet. And you see Mighty Mount Rundle. So at the bottom of the Bow Falls, then you meet the Spray River, which is coming in. Um, and that one's clear because it's not glacial fed. And then if you went up the Spray Valley, that's heading up the back that way, and you head up into Kananaskis country, where we hosted the G7 quite recently, with no sort of interesting events at all. So that sort of came and went with, at least there were no terrible events during it, but nothing particularly interesting either. Um, the list part. Now, I did hear on the news this morning that indeed, I just have to show you this for fun. There's, they're moving the horses right now. I'll zoom in. They're moving them. There's horses right across from us. They're moving them up to the Banff Springs Hotel to do the tours. So that's the Banff trail rides. Very, very docile riding. Like it's sort of ideal for people who have never ridden before. I guess if I were to say something a little negative, I think they hire, as you do everywhere here, hire new staff every year, and uh, it can just be a little more polite on trails. It's one little comment that I'll make there. So we're already seeing quite a lot of earth exposed down here. You see, that's already the river levels dropping. There's another. They're obviously fully. Yes, no pollution. You're right. We've been lucky for smoke this year, but I do want to reach out and offer the warmest thoughts to a couple of places, specifically Newfoundland. So Newfoundland and Labrador, Canada's newest province, but of course was the longest self-governing British colony in the world. Um, they're on fire. I mean, they're on fire down there because it's so dry in a place that's famous for its rain and fog. And then and Manitoba, northern Manitoba, First Nations communities. So the fact we're not getting the fires doesn't mean they're not here. Here, though, is our pride flag, which I just love to see. During the pandemic, we couldn't have pride festivals, and you go all over Western Canada. Well, I guess Canada, and no matter how small the town is, you'll see these kind of flags. Once in a long time, there's some silly person who gives some rude comment, but for the most part, that doesn't carry here. Hey, thank you. For the most part, everyone is welcome. Another Jason Carter one. That's a small version of a big painting he has at the Calgary airport. Now, everyone, this is amazing to see. Doesn't happen very often, but there is a house for sale on the river. So this is back to that earlier question about the actual permanent population. I think this one's going for about 3 million, but only 8,500 people can actually buy it. This is called The Path We Walk by Deanna McGilvery. And there, I'm actually going to show you because McGilvery just always interests me because I don't know her and I have to look her up because one of the mountains east of here is Mount McGilvery and there's McGilvery Pond. So I just wonder if she has a connection to that name. I really don't know, but certainly someone from the valley. Look at that lovely, lovely home. So I don't know what's happening in their life for them to sell because generally these get handed down generationally. And there's a lovely log cabin up in here, and that's the home of the superintendent of the park, which is not a job I would want. It's a big, big, big job, but of course, it's a famous park as well. That's nice. Time for reflection. That's Alice Conniff. And then the Bears, Brenda Hine. Oh, that is an excellent question. Do we have a tick problem here? So we have ticks. So I wouldn't say it's a problem insofar as we have a very, very low occurrence of Lyme's disease. So much so, some doctors have said there's no Lyme's disease in Alberta now. How do you really say that? I do tick check, although I have not seen a tick. This is Trail of the Cedars, and that's in Waterton National Park. It's lovely. So nothing like well, New England, there's that same shadowy creature, see? Nothing like and Minnesota, I guess, has a terrible problem with it. Maine, Vermont, like just so the last little while, I have been in quite tall grass, which is where you worry about them. So I do tick check at the end of the day, but I haven't seen and you know what? Sorry, I need to take um the lower route just to show you one more neat bit of art before we climb up. So I have to come down here. So yes, it was 3 years ago. By the way, Elizabeth, who's 8 years old, her work of art, thank you, is Thank You for the Trees. Isn't that lovely? It seems like I appreciate um, young people here understanding the beauty of where they live. So it must have been 3 years ago back when I was still on the platform called Hago. I did a tour one day. I just going to show you this before I talk. Now, this is the famous quote. Thank you. The famous quote, of course, from Leonard Cohen. There's a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. Just love that. Love that quote. But is everybody out in their morning bike rides now? Um, well, yeah, we have both the whitetail and the mule deer. The whitetail, you never hardly get to spend time with because they just run away. But the mule deer just stand and stare at you. Hey, nice to see you. Um, So I was out doing a tour by Castle Mountain in the tall grass, and there's a lot of history out there. There's a place called Silver City, which is long gone. And I came home and I went to have a shower and I found two ticks in my belly button. So yucky. And I first jumped, yuck. One fell off, and the other one I had to actually get with the tweezers. Um, and then I had to spend a half hour finding the one that I knocked off. Look at you, little lovely little sparrow. Just yeah, it was. It was so I go to nature to be soothed and healed and to have my senses put in order. John Burrow. Lovely. Um, yeah, that was pretty yucky. But I one time years ago with my little Finn, who's now big. Finn, by the way, is starting a tour today with people from Australia, and it's a 8-day tour. So he'll be out here again, I think tomorrow night or the next night. I'm going up to Jasper with them. He's spending more time in Jasper these days than I am. Lucky young man. Um, but yeah, so those who are wondering about him, he's doing very well, and of course he's taking that tour seriously. I was approached by a company yesterday asking if I could block an entire year to offer free walking tours. Anyway, that's a long story. Here's the bison. So, and there we go. Parks Canada acknowledges that Banff National Park is within the present day territories of Treaty 6, 7, and 8 First Nations, as well as the Métis homeland. The lands and waters of Banff have been used for millennia by Indigenous peoples for sustenance, ceremony, trade, and travel. We thank them for their continued stewardship and sharing this land with us. So that is a significant acknowledgement. And bison, of course, this was, um, yeah, this was, of course, a hunting corridor. Yeah, it was a. Now the lady was really lovely who reached out to me, and I didn't even get what they were explaining, um, but I said, well, I could do one for you. Like, oh no, we could release 5 days a week for the next year. So anyway, it wasn't the best use of my afternoon, but because could have been a 5 minute conversation on the phone. So before it gets too crazy, crazy busy, which it will, I know I put up a little video clip. Oh, I just see something's fenced off over there. I don't know what's going on. I have no idea. It's like someone's putting on a wetsuit. That's very no idea what's going on. Anyway, here is Banff Avenue, um, in all its glory, pretty much all its glory. And we have visitors from all over the world. Here's the Park Museum, by the way, which is worth a visit when it's open. One of the houses on Bear Street has been opened up as a museum. I don't really know anything about what's going on there, but I am interested to go and have a look. Now, on the top of that clock tower mall there, I see they have all solar, which is wonderful. Nice to see. And interestingly enough, we have a gentleman in town here who kind of pushes his cart around. He walks around with his shirt off all the time. So we have one other gentleman who sits outside most of the year, and on the really, really cold days, the businesses leave the doors unlocked so he can go inside. But I have a huge amount of sympathy, hopefully empathy for people who live in a precarious situation. But of course, Banff, we're quite a close knit community, and for the very odd person who really does genuinely choose um, the lifestyle of living unsheltered for the most part, hopefully we can be here for them. Um, but again, let's not pretend that most people choose that. The housing crises around the world. I didn't quite finish the good weather exactly. Here's all the national parks here. And so where I did that little video the other day was at the top of Glacier National Park, Rogers Pass National Historic Site. That's where I was there. And then Mount Revelstoke is where I go into the giant cedars. They're all places I just love. But of course, the whole story really starts right here at the Cave and Basin. That's pretty lovely. So this sign here really needs some fixing up. Well, I'm gonna head down this way because my bike is locked up on Bear Street and my baguette is in the back. And I have wild blueberries thawing at home. Doesn't that sound like a great Sunday to you? And now by this afternoon, by noon, even by 10:30, there'll be a gentleman who's done this for years, post on a corner up here. And when traffic is not flowing well, he just steps out in the middle and tells people who can move and who can't move. Um, there's our library over there. Um, it's it's for those of you who've been here, you can walk all of these lovely places in the town center really quite easily. And I do. Um, how far is Golden? So Golden is roughly an hour and a half. In fact, so it's an hour to get to the border with British Columbia, almost exactly. So an hour and a quarter to get down to Field, an hour 25 or so to get into Takaka Falls, which is something you should always do for the 4 months a year that it's open. But then you carry on to Golden. Golden, once you're there, is the other side of the Canadian Rockies. Now you're still staring at fabulous mountains, but you're staying at the Purcells when you're over there. Suddenly there's metamorphic rock. Like there's a different geology in there. So Banff to Golden, call it, an hour 45. But the new road is now finished to Golden and it is fabulous. It's taken them 30 years, but the road actually sticks out into the canyon in some areas. Then it's about another hour, 45 minutes to get from Golden up to the top of Rogers Pass and about 45 down into Revelstoke. So I consider Revelstoke 3.5 to 4 hours from here, depending on traffic. Um, and and Revy's a great town. So I actually was quite rainy when I drove through it. last week. The White Museum over here still has this beautiful art display called "The Ancestors Are Talking," and it is gorgeous. Indigenous art going back well longer than I've been alive. You're not allowed to take any pictures of it, so you have to go see it. And there's our town hall. Our mayor is Corey DeMano. There's the other gentleman. He's just sitting out on the seat over there. Yeah, he's a tobacco user, but he will end up sitting right down on Wolf Street and just hanging out. And everyone kind of watches out for him. Originally from BC, but say we know who he is, and like say local businesses, those -30, -40 days, just leave the doors unlocked so he can go inside, should he want to. Now, here is Nestor's, one of our two grocery stores in town. But I did stop at Granville Island the other day in Vancouver, so I loaded up on a few goodies that we can't get here. So that's just a kind of a better thing. So yeah. All right, ladies and gentlemen, listen, I'm just about up to where my bike is locked up. And you know what? I wore my hoodie. It's thank you. Thank you very much from Hong Kong, doll. That's really fun. Thanks. Um, nice to have people from Hong Kong. I will be in Hong Kong in November this year. I'm definitely going to spend a night in Macau, but I'm not going to gamble. But I'm actually looking at going over because I haven't been in official China for years and years and years. And apparently at the border in Hong Kong, I can get a visa just to Shenzhen, just to go back into China. But I'm really looking forward. We're going to enjoy Hong Kong. So thank you for connecting. All right, ladies and gentlemen, all the very best. Here's all being ready for wildfire season. Um, you'd love a China tour. Yeah, it's just so complicated at the moment. So yeah, there's so much to see. Yunjin is the city I want to go to in China, the one that's in that really, really deep valley. But getting the visa, I'd have to go up there. I have to mail my passport away. I have too much travel coming up. So anyway, ladies and gentlemen, peace and love from the mountains. Thanks for joining me this morning. It's really fun having you all along. So I'm just heading down Bear Street. And for anyone having um, tough times, let the mountains soothe your heart. Take care, everyone. Lots of love. Bye bye.